It's just David here with my weekly broadcast. As we come close to Holy Week, I just sort of give you a brief sort of run through of the services that we're going to have. The dates and the times and stuff you'll have, but I just thought I'd just spend a few moments going through what we do in Holy Week and Easter. So I'm going to start with Palm Sunday, and I'm pleased to say that hopefully, all being well, we've got Mr. Giggles, the sort of donkey-style creature that's going to walk us down the high street in Welwyn, and we'll have some. Afraid we won't have him at Walmer Green, or at the other churches, but there we are. But it's a day, of course, when we think particularly of Jesus entering Jerusalem just before Passover on a donkey, a sign not of humility actually, because most pilgrims would enter by foot, but a sign of a king entering his city, and so we'll remember that. That same day, I mean, it's like we cut ahead. It's one of the two occasions when we read the Passion, so it's good to have that story read, this time from Luke's Gospel, because it's that year we go on a sort of 3-year cycle. I know there's 4 Gospels. I'm aware of that, but we'll come to that. So we read Luke's Gospel, and then we have our communion service, and we'll be reading that at some other churches as well. Then we go through Holy Week. Not having the Passover this year, there's been a bit of controversy in the church about whether it's appropriate to have a Passover, or it's something that sort of should be exclusively reserved, if you like, to the Jewish faith. I mean, I think it's a slightly odd conversation. We might bring it back, but I want to chat with people about what they think. But we won't have it this year anyway. Some people call it cultural appropriation. I'm not sure so. I think kind of people use that term, but I think if we didn't have cultural appropriation, all popular music and all cooking would go, really. So anyway, that's enough of that. That's not really what I want to talk about. We do have 2 sort of quieter midweek services on the Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock. We have Compline at St Mary's. At 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock on Tuesday we have Compline, and then Wednesday we have our normal 9:30 Eucharist in the morning, but we have a slightly different form with prayers for healing. So do come along if you want to be specially prayed for, or members of your family, or just anybody to be prayed for, especially at that service. And then that evening we have a Taizé service at 8 p.m. at St Mary's, just to remind ourselves and to quietly sort of make our way through Holy Week. It's always nice, the Taizé service. Thursday is, of course, Maunday Thursday, and we go to the cathedral in the morning. All are welcome. Meet in the rectory at 10, and we'll drive over, and we have what's called the Chrismas, which is a sort of, 2 things happen really. The clergy go, and along with sort of lay ministers, renew their vows of ordination or licensing. And then also the oils are blessed. The oils for baptism and for the sick, and the chrism oils are blessed and then taken away. So we'll do that. We normally have a lunch out afterwards as well. So do join us for that. Then that evening, of course, we start what's known as the Triduum, the 3 days, the 3, if you like, most holy days of the Christian year, with Maunday Thursday Eucharist at St Mary's, and we'll wash the feet as Jesus did. Maunday means commandment, and there's 3 things he commanded. Firstly, to love one another, perhaps the most important commandment. Secondly, to wash feet, which we will do. And thirdly, then he institutes the Eucharist, to share bread and wine. Do this in remembrance of me. And so we do that. And at that point, we'll have our Holy Week preacher at Welwyn for the first time. Hannah Mattis, Professor Hannah Mattis, is from America, from Virginia Theological Seminary. She happens to be over here on sabbatical, friend of mine, so she'll be preaching for us throughout that period. And then those who wish watch, and we watch, I watch till midnight. Remembering Jesus watching in the Garden of Gethsemane. If you remember, they went out after dinner, which, if you like, is who's the communion, and then they went out to watch, and we have a sort of garden of repose, which is always very beautiful, and we put the sort of the bread there from the communion of Jesus's presence, and that sort of stays there all night with a candle by it. And then, of course, we come to Good Friday. So in the morning on Good Friday, we have Stations in the Cross at 9:30 at Walmer Green. That's always a very interactive thing. We move around the church for that, and sort of do a couple of craft activities and have some sort of hot cross buns and things afterwards. And then we have the 3-hour service at Welland. The first hour and a half is Stations of the Cross. So it used to be you went to Jerusalem and walked the Stations of the Cross, sort of 14, 15 stations, which go from the trial of Jesus to his burial. And you'd walk round Jerusalem, the Via Dolorosa. But then it became, after the Saracens invaded, it became possible to do that. So it sort of, people invented to do it around your own city, or indeed around your own church. And so cities and churches began to marked with images that marked the stations, and you would sort of walk round as a congregation, walking your way of the cross and just reflecting at each point at what had occurred. And then the second half is the sort of Good Friday liturgy, which has some of the most ancient prayers that we know of the church in. It's a time when we hear the Passion read again. This time we hear St. John's Passion read. So it's always John on Good Friday, and we hear that read. And then at the end of the service, well, first of all, we have what you call the Veneration of the Cross. So the cross is presented, the large wooden cross brought to the front, and people have a chance to have a few moments in front of it while the choir sing the reproaches. And then, yes, then we come to sort of our communion. It's slightly odd communion. I know we haven't had the sort of common cup, the wine, for a couple of years now, but we don't ever have it on Good Friday. And there is a kind of symbolism that you sort of right at the end, quite sort of brusquely share the bread, and then you sort of just leave everything very stark and bare by that point. And and you just leave the church. I mean, I always think on Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, you don't process out. You just sort of, because at one time Jesus is abandoned in the garden, and the other time he dies on the cross. So you just sort of leave, and at 3:00 on that Friday, we just go with the cross set up in the middle and leaving everything quite bare. And then I think, I mean, not that one would normally have many services, but we don't, I mean, the church is open as normal. We don't really have any worship or set prayer times until Easter. Now, sometimes we have an Easter vigil on the Saturday evening. Sometimes we have it on Sunday morning. So I think Datchworth and Codica having dawn services, I think at 6 a.m. And of course, we don't know when the resurrection happened. I mean, it's not an event that's witnessed. I mean, it might have. I mean, we know that sort of guards were set at night, and we know by the time the women go in the morning, Christ is raised. So you can celebrate at any time from sort of nightfall through till dawn. But remember that sort of while it was yet dark, in John chapter 20. And then, of course, Easter starts. And I mean, in some ways, Easter is the most kind of normal day. I mean, okay, it's a time where it's a bit sort of joyful and etc. But yeah, it's kind of back to normal. We have our Eucharist, joyful Eucharist. We say the A word, which we haven't said generally during Lent, and we have a nice celebration with a few eggs and things. We won't actually have an evening service, because I just think by that time we've kind of done enough. But yeah, there'll be the usual Sunday morning services. And then on the Monday, anybody who wishes can walk to St Albans. There's the traditional Easter Monday pilgrimage. Hadn't happened for a while. It is happening now. And so I think we meet at 8:30 for breakfast at St Mary's. you need to sign up for that, but we'll have a hearty cooked breakfast, and then we stop at a couple of places on the way, and then there's a big service in the Abbey with people coming from all over the diocese. Now, we haven't been able to do that for a couple of years, so it'd be nice to do that again, and that kind of then sort of completes our Easter celebrations. Obviously, have services normal after that, but that is Easter celebrations. So I hope that kind of takes you through sort of generally what's happening at Holy Week and Easter. I hope you're able to come along and be around, and and sort of participate. I always think it's it's a time when we really can get under the skin of the story of Jesus, particularly his death and resurrection.